Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about real stories and insights about how we help you build lasting habits for a better business and a better lifestyle. So,
you are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
I'm your host, Jesse Ewell, and we are going to be talking about the habit of facing criticism. Specifically, I heard a statement, and it goes a little something like this. Most of the people that criticize you the most are typically the people not doing the work. The people who criticize you the least are the people who actually are doing the work. So think about that for a second, is that most of the time, the people who are criticizing other people, it's simply a projection of them not doing the work. And, if you think about it, it's like how often you'll very rarely ever see somebody who's actually doing the work criticize somebody else who is, because they understand, number one, they understand the work and what it takes. Number two, it goes back to like, hey, if I'm doing the work or somebody else is around me, oftentimes they get celebrated. They don't get criticized. And so if you're truly doing the work, you're going to celebrate the other people who are, because there's no energy for criticism. So I want to talk real quick about this habit. So, we've all faced criticism, especially from people, who aren't doing the work. And it's oftentimes it can be frustrating, but it's really just a common thing, especially on social media. I like to post, specifically like, hey, when I'm in the middle of a 90-day challenge, I like to post my workouts. I like to post what I'm doing. And it's not so much for other people to be like, wow, this guy's really disciplined. It's more for me to keep myself accountable, to be like, all right, I got momentum. Like it's day, 60 of 90 or day, 40 of 90. It helps me count down the days and it helps me take action. It kind of, in a sense, it brings this sense of momentum. And as I get more momentum, I feel like I can create more movement. But here's the thing is, oftentimes people will criticize other people that are doing the work. And they often project, the critics will often project their insecurities on you. When they see you developing new habits, when they see you making changes, it triggers their own insecurities. It triggers their own self-doubt. And this is really how society, often critiques other people. If you're not creating something new, then you're going to critique something new. And so think about this, is if you're a creator, you're not going to be a critic. If you're a critic, it's impossible for you to be a creator. You can't create something new if you're sitting there criticizing what other people are doing. And, critiquing or criticizing people creates a negative energy that doesn't multiply. It usually stops right there. So when you're getting criticized, it's often because you're growing, and people see that and they want to kind of get you to where you're playing small because it makes them uncomfortable. So people often ask me like, well, how do I handle criticism when I'm putting myself out there on social media, when I'm actually growing, I'm changing, I'm doing all these things, yet I have all these people criticizing me or critiquing what I'm doing. And instead of thinking it as a negative thing, think of it as a positive thing. Listen, people aren't criticizing the people below them. They're criticizing the people above them. So when you think of like, well, how do I actually handle someone below me, is we often, we do it in one of two ways. Think of like a ladder. I step on people, or I step up above people, I rise up, you don't want to crawl back down, to the bottom of the ladder because somebody else is criticized. That's exactly what they want. And so think of this as a positive thing. No one above you is going to criticize you. It's typically people below you or beneath you, and they're getting uncomfortable because they have to grow. Think of it this way. It's easy whenever you go to a sporting event, whenever you watch sports on TV, how often do you hear somebody, on the couch, on the sideline, criticizing the person in the game? And it's crazy because 98% of the people on the sideline or in the stands or on the couch could never actually play the game or play with the athletes they're criticizing. And that's the crazy part of all of this. And so imagine being a pro athlete, how often they get criticized, how often somebody critiques what they're doing, yet they could never stand next to them and actually play that same game. So what's the famous quote we hear? It's not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the man who actually is in the arena. It's not the person on the couch who counts. It's not the person on the sideline who counts. The credit belongs to the person in the arena actually playing the game. So, I remember making the transition back in 2018 from personal trainer to all of a sudden, going into business. Although I'd been coaching for 3-4 years before that, I'd been coaching in the fitness industry for a long time. I was going into a new arena, and I had people in other, just say other health areas criticizing some of the work I was doing. And that made me recognize like, hey, I'm actually going in the right direction. I have people criticizing the work I'm doing, saying I'm not a chiropractor, I'm not this, I'm not that. But it was their own insecurity that, hey, this other guy from another industry is now breaking into a new industry. It's making me really uncomfortable. Instead of asking him what he's actually doing, I'm just going to criticize him because that makes me feel better. That makes me feel more secure. And so this is really the mindset of what people are doing. So how do we turn criticism into fuel? Well, we can turn criticism into fuel just simply by recognizing, that people are not criticizing you because they're above you. They're criticizing you because they're below you. It means you need to keep going. It means you need to almost push yourself harder because you're beginning to recognize that you are actually making other people around you uncomfortable, insecure, and that is a positive thing. The other thing is this. Recognize this. If I'm creating, I'm always going to get criticized. If I'm creating something new, something different, I'm always going to get criticized for it, especially when it begins to have traction. And so you can't be a creator and criticizer at the same time. You can only be a creator. You can only be a criticizer, but you get to pick that and focus on the one that you choose and move forward. So, guys, I want to share that message with you today because I think it's really powerful that we can ultimately want to hold ourselves back when we get criticized, yet leaning into that is actually the most important thing that we can do because we begin to recognize that that criticism is the exact fuel that we need to move forward. And that criticism is actually an opportunity for us to grow. It's an opportunity for us to, begin to level up and continue to move forward. So I want to thank you guys for being on the show today. If you have any questions, need help with anything, or maybe just having a hard time with the criticism you're facing, you could simply reach out to me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. You can also find me on Facebook or Instagram. Just check out the show notes for that. Until next episode, have a great day.
You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.